welcome back. In today's world as a musician, it's more important than ever to be able to record yourself, whether it's in the studio, at a show, a rehearsal, or just to create content for social media. As somebody who works in all of those settings, I've spent a lot of time developing my craft of recording for both audio purposes, but also to integrate into video. Over the years, I've tried a lot of different tools to help me do this, and I've always been a fan of Zoom Audio and their products. When I was in high school, I bought the original H2 and used it to record myself at rehearsals and gigs, and eventually, when I was in college, I saw the importance of having video and bought the first Zoom Q3. Over time, I upgraded to the Q8, and eventually when I got into multi-angle video projects, I invested in 3 of the Zoom Q2Ns. As I've stepped up my skills with video editing and production, I found myself needing to invest in cameras that were much more equipped for the quality of content I was creating. And no offense to Zoom, but when I would try to integrate my Q2Ns into video with my higher-end camera equipment, the difference was pretty stark. While the cameras I was now using were a clear step up in picture quality, the audio wasn't even close to the level of the Zoom cameras. Even with an external mic used with these cameras, I was still left wanting more, specifically for musical situations. I knew I'd want to invest in another field recorder for those live situations where I don't have the luxury of getting a board mix or a multi-track recording. And with my past experience using Zoom field recorders and the wide variety of products they offer, I was sure I'd be able to find something to fit my exact needs. It wasn't much later when I found myself watching a video from Adam Neely where he documented a short tour with one of his bands, and I assumed all the high-quality audio of the live clips were a board mix. I was blown away when at the end of the video, he walked through the recording setup and showed how they used the Zoom H6 to multi-track the shows with minimal effort or footprint on stage, and then took later to mix in a DAW. Almost instantly, I was sold on getting the H6 and picked one up off Amazon. A few days later, it showed up and I was ready to get to work testing out all the different ways I'd be able to use it. The unit comes in 2 pieces. The main body with an LCD screen, all the controls, and 4 XLR line combo inputs. The second and smaller part of this unit is a detachable stereo mic with a gain adjustment. Zoom offers a variety of different capsules for this detachable head, but the Stereo XY mic is the standard coming with the unit. The whole recorder runs off 4 AA batteries, but can also run off AC power if you're willing to purchase the power adapter separately. It accepts the larger standard SD cards, which isn't included, but these are fairly cheap, and I already had plenty of these around. And while I always recommend going with a larger size card, audio doesn't eat up nearly the amount of storage as video, so even a 32 or 64 gigabyte card could be plenty. My first test for this recorder was to take it out to a local big band gig I do and record the whole ensemble using just the stereo mic. We had hired a videographer to take some new promotional material for us this night, and we had planned to use the audio from the H6 in conjunction with that video. I provided a couple samples to compare the raw camera audio to the H6. This is probably the easiest way to use the H6. Drop it in front of the band, hit record, and grab it later. And although the difference is not night and day, I found the H6 audio to be much crisper than the raw audio from the camera. I noticed this most helpful with the moving camera shots. Where the camera picked up whatever is closest, the H6 picks up a more balanced mix of the band based on where we had set it up, about 15 feet in front of the group. The quality is certainly good enough, and this feature is really the baseline for what I needed in a field recorder. But I was excited to explore some of the other ways to use the H6. The next night, I had a gig with my jazz trio at a small listening room session. I'd planned to take this opportunity to try and do a more proper multi-track recording using the H6. For this test, I used a stereo mic over the left shoulder of the drums on a mic stand, a microphone on the bass drum, a DI signal straight from the bass amp, and a microphone draped over the face of the guitar amp. It took only 5 to 10 minutes to set this whole process up, including getting a level for each channel. And I set the H6 to multi-track each channel, as opposed to creating a mix of all the channels into one stereo track. When I got home, I dragged all these tracks into Logic to do all the mixing and mastering. I synced up this audio with video from my Sony ZV-1, and for the demo I included here, I provided both raw and processed audio of the full mix and each isolated channel. In my opinion, this audio quality is pretty amazing, especially given the minimal effort I had to put in to setting up this recording. Of course, I'd be limited if the group I was playing with was much bigger or had vocals, but this is an extremely useful tool in helping me grab high quality audio from my smaller gigs. And if I was playing with a much larger band or show, I might have the opportunity to get a board mix from the front of house engineer. These two setups alone were really the determining factors in why I decided to buy the H6. But I was pleasantly surprised when I did my research to see that you could also use the H6 as an audio interface into your computer. In my studio, I primarily use two interfaces, the larger being a 16-channel digital interface run off an iPad, and while this is extremely versatile and useful for drum tracking or full band sessions, it can be a lot of work to set up if I'm only using a handful of channels. My second interface is really the complete opposite, a smaller 2-channel interface that I can just plug in and record in a couple seconds. It's nice for overdubs, voiceovers, and quick content that I'll record just using an overhead and kick mic. These two setups have worked really well, but now with the H6 as a third option, I have an interface that offers a few more channels and a quick setup time. Unfortunately, Zoom doesn't include the USB cable you need to make this happen, but I was able to get one from Amazon in just a day. Setting up the H6 as an interface is as simple as plugging it in and then powering on the H6 and selecting Audio Interface, then MultiTrack, and finally PC Mac. On my MacBook Pro, it showed up instantly into my audio preferences on Logic without installing any drivers. But I know that might be slightly different on a PC. When I set this up to record my drums, I used the stereo mic above the kit as an overhead, and then a microphone on the kick, snare, and 2 toms. In this demo, I provided clips of both isolated channels and a full mix with and without processing. So as you can hear, the channels are clean, and the interface application is surely another great feature of the H6. I used this for a drum cover video I published on my channel recently, and if you recognize which one it is based on the sample I included, leave a comment down below. It's a little inconvenient to use the stereo mic as an overhead because it forced me to keep the entire unit above my drums and not have quick access to adjusting gain levels on any of the mics. But other than that, it worked great, and I had no issues with using it recording directly into Logic. Zoom does offer an extension cable for their mic capsules that would allow you to keep the body of the device in a different area than the stereo mic. But of course, it's sold separately, and in my opinion, the price tag on that cable is pretty steep, coming in at $90 for a 10-foot extension and $120 for a 20-foot extension.
1 week later.
After searching around Reverb, I found an open box listing of the ECM6, and I decided to go ahead and purchase it so I could get the extension of the stereo mic into a more convenient position. On the end where the mic capsule locks in, there's a threaded receiver to mount this onto a tripod, or in my case, a mic stand with a camera adapter. This setup was a lot more convenient than mounting the entire H6 over the drums, and allowed me to still be able to monitor and make adjustments while seated at the drums. The only con with this accessory, other than the high price tag, is the stereo mic is still controlled by the gain wheel on the microphone, so if you need to adjust that mic, you'd still need to do it from above or wherever that mic is placed, and then reference the level on the screen wherever the body is. I recorded a sample with and without the extension cable to account for any audio changes that might be present. If there is any difference, I can't hear it, but the convenience was a worthwhile investment for me, as I hope to use this stereo mic capsule specifically for drums when I multi-track myself at gigs. The only application which I haven't been able to try the H6 out yet is using it as a recorder, taking a signal from a board or front of house setup. On a lot of these shows where I can get a board mix, plenty of instruments on stage are mic'd, but I always find some of the energy is missing, with no room sound and no audible sound of an audience clapping or cheering. It'll be nice, easy, and convenient to be able to simultaneously record the stereo mic and a board signal already synced and ready to mix later. So all in all, my thoughts on the Zoom H6 are pretty clear. It's an extremely valuable and versatile tool for anybody looking to record audio in many different setups. From quick stereo recordings in a room to an on-the-go multi-track recording, and even in the studio, the Zoom H6 has the ability to help you get audio efficiently with a rig that takes almost no space. In the time I've owned the H6, I haven't even changed the batteries once, and I've recorded numerous shows ranging from 2 to 3 hours each. Although the price tag may seem pretty steep, I have no regrets making the investment, given the variety of settings I've already used it in. I do wish Zoom would offer the base product with a few accessories like the USB cable and the same hardshell case they used to offer with the first iteration of the H6, but I also understand that would most likely result in a higher price tag. I'm excited to continue using my H6 for years to come, and I'm glad to continue my nearly 12-year run of using Zoom products. If you own the H6 or another field recorder, leave a comment down below telling me your experience. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on future video releases, which I do on a weekly basis. Until next time, thanks.